If it's happening now, then my goodness, we are going to deal with it right now. Part 1 of our special Capital Bob, where this is all about the thing that happened on Wednesday. If you didn't remember, on Wednesday's Giving Break, I talked to you guys about the mob, about the riot on Capitol Hill because of President Trump. It was all because of that voter. It was all because of the voter fraud. But let's look at the very latest. Let's look at what happened. I mean, it happened because of President Trump. I mean, this all started because of President Trump. And if you didn't remember, there were a couple people that were doing this during in Corpus Christi. 2 people were Michelle Busey and someone named Suzanne. Now, on Wednesday, I did ask them if they want to appear on the show. And like I said, if they want to come on, I made the offer, and I'm still waiting to hear from them. In this case, but in this particular case, I've not heard from them. So I think what really needs to happen here is that y'all have got to understand, I mean, just because Trump won does not mean you have to believe what President Trump has to say. If Biden won the election, there's no point in him telling you to go outside and protest or whatever. And as of now, Senator Ted Cruz is being under attack. Here's the latest from 3 News.
President Trump not the only person taking heat for causing the mob to go after members of Congress they don't agree with. Texas Senator Ted Cruz also getting a fair amount of the blame, along with some other Texas lawmakers in a lesser role. Mariah Gallegos looks into that for us tonight.
So why is Ted Cruz being targeted? Here's Mariah Gallegos.
It's no surprise that several Texas Republican leaders continued to support President Trump in his drive to overturn the election. This even after rioters stormed the Capitol. 17 out of 25 Texans in Congress still objected to counting Electoral College votes for President-elect Joe Biden. Senator Ted Cruz, one of the Republicans who continued forward in claims of voter fraud, is now receiving backlash.
I think the president's rhetoric was irresponsible. I think it was reckless, and I don't think it was remotely helpful.
Cruz responding to Trump and the rioters, denouncing their actions on Twitter, but some feel it was a little too late. Houstonians gathered and protested earlier today in front of his office, calling for his resignation. Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner also saying Texans should hold Cruz accountable. Texans are also calling on the state legislature to hold Attorney General Ken Paxton responsible after he too rallied Trump supporters at a March to Save America speech. Paxton tweeted earlier today saying peaceful protests are constitutional, violent protests are not. But many responded saying he incited the riot. Meanwhile, a few other Texans, like Republican Representative Pat Fallon, are being recognized for joining in with others to safeguard the door to the Capitol chamber. That is, until there were reports of shots fired. All were escorted out after. As the nation moves forward in preparing to inaugurate Joe Biden as president, Texans continue to call for action against these two prominent state leaders. Some of those call to actions include the resignation of Senator Ted Cruz and for the legislature to limit, restrict, or even impeach Attorney General Ken Paxton. Mariah Gallegos, 3 News.
And President Trump, not the only person.
I don't think that he should be attacked. I think what really needs to happen here, he's just speaking his opinion, and if you Trump supporters want to disagree with that, that's your choice. But when you sit there and say he should be impeached, that Ted Cruz should be impeached, you're asking for help. That is what you're doing. You are just seriously asking for help. No one should be doing this. No one should be sitting there and saying, look, I mean, we really don't need this crap happening. And I think what really needs to happen here is that no one should be targeted. If somebody wants to speak their opinions, then they can speak their opinions. Y'all don't need to be sitting there saying, oh, he's a Biden supporter or whatever, let's attack him. That's your choice. That's your choice. And like Dr. Phil always says, if you choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. If you choose to go out and do violent protests, you're choosing the consequences of letting this happen. And this is a continuing coverage, and he's
maybe on the opposite sides of the political aisle, but two congressmen from the coastal bend have very similar stories to tell about being inside the Capitol as rioters broke in. Our Seth Kovar joins us.
But there are some other sides of the story. Here's Seth Kovar.
As lawmakers describe their experiences, Seth.
Well, Country, you see Representative Michael Cloud here is a Republican. Representative Vicente Gonzalez is a Democrat. But for several hours yesterday, they were simply human beings facing rioters whose intentions weren't clear.
Knew it could go all the way, and knew it could go all the way to murders.
That's what was going through Congressman Vicente Gonzalez's mind as rioters stormed the Capitol yesterday, where he, Congressman Michael Cloud, and their colleagues were working in the House chambers.
It got to the point where the doors were locked, but people were banging on the doors.
They watched as House leaders were evacuated, but before he could evacuate himself, Gonzalez took cover.
There were some pops, and they said, "Everybody get down." I found a place where I thought was safe. There was a balcony ledge where I tried to protect myself.
He and the other lawmakers would eventually make it to secret locations on the Capitol grounds. They'd spend several hours there before police could clear out the rioters, people Cloud wants to see punished.
Those who were involved in that need to be arrested. They need to be tried and dealt with.
4 protesters died, and dozens of police officers were hurt, something that hangs heavy on our local lawmakers.
We lost 4 lives at the end of the day. I think there wasn't a member in the chamber that it didn't cross their mind that it could have been them.
The facility's in decent shape, but it feels like such a violation, I think, for us as a nation because of what that building means.
Now, something that made the situation even more difficult for Representatives Cloud and Gonzalez was the lack of information. While we watched everything unfold right there on TV, they were sheltering in locations that didn't have televisions or windows. Katya?
Can you imagine? All right, Seth, thank you for that income.
And this was in the middle of the chaos. This was in the middle. Nothing was being done. They'd rather just sit there and not have a TV. And those coastal bend citizens attend those. Like I talked about. Michelle Busey was one of those who attended that. And I'm still waiting to hear from her if she's willing to come on here on Friday. to tell her side of the story. And it's also happening in Robstown. Like, they quietly divided over the protests. And those three people were safe. You have Michael Cloud, Femi Veta, and Vincent Gonzalez. And it's still, this was happening. I mean, yesterday, well on Wednesday, those Trump eyes was at the Sunrise Mall in the parking lot. And if I was there, I could have reported there, tell you what happened, and then this would have been a good show. And those pro-Trump protesters were storming. I mean, it's the Washington mob we're dealing with. If you don't like the mob, you don't have to like the mob. I mean, like, take away the gangs and put in the mob. I'm not a supporter because I don't vote. And, like, I know people are going to be constantly like, oh, you should register to vote or something like that. That's something I don't want to talk about. That's something I don't want to talk about for YouTube purposes. And I do not want to be judged by this. I mean, and Nancy Pelosi wants Trump to remove from office, according to the 25th Amendment. Well, what does it have to do with it? Well, coming up on Give Me Back Friday, we're gonna have a special called Washington Mob, where we're gonna talk about everything that happened, and especially those couple of the thousands of people that were doing this that was in that protest during that time on Wednesday. We're going to give you the exact time, the exact place that happened, even in Washington, and give you the definition of the 25th Amendment from the moderator of Face the Nation. That's coming up on Friday. Plus more COVID-19, especially the woman who spoke with Inside Edition's Lisa Guerrero of why she does not wear masks while we're looking at the cases in California. That's tomorrow. That's on Fridays. Give Me a Break. Thank you for joining me for Give Me a Break right now, and I hope to see you on Friday for our Give Me a Break special, The Washington Mob. Have a good night.